Alberta defies Carney's plan. SPARKS movement for provincial freedom. Prime Minister Mark Carney is facing pressure from nearly every angle. Fresh off his victory in the snap federal election of April 28, 2025, Carney's leadership has entered choppy waters. The Bloc Québécois has taken direct aim at him in Parliament, sarcastically accusing him of borrowing Justin Trudeau's spine and painting him as a weak successor who lacks the conviction to lead decisively. While these barbs may seem theatrical, they've resonated with growing portions of the electorate who are already uneasy about Carney's slow start and unclear direction. The harsh words from the Bloc are no longer dismissed as partisan theater. They reflect a broader anxiety simmering across the country about Carney's ability to command respect both domestically and on the global stage. One of the most damning revelations came from within Carney's own ranks. News broke that Raj Gill, a prominent Liberal youth organizer and national coordinator for the Young Liberals, held significant influence and access in government despite not being a Canadian citizen until very recently. The public reaction was explosive. How could someone without citizenship be allowed into inner political circles, potentially handling sensitive information? This scandal has become a symbol of what critics see as a careless and ethically compromised administration, one that talks about integrity while failing to enforce even the most basic standards of national security and transparency. In the wake of these controversies, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has emerged as a bold and increasingly popular figure pushing back against the federal government. Smith announced the creation of Alberta's own provincial police force, an unprecedented move meant to fill growing gaps left by the RCMP, especially in rural areas. This decision has been described as practical by some, revolutionary by others, and threatening by her critics. It's not just about law enforcement, it's about power. For many Albertans, this is a clear step toward greater provincial independence, and perhaps the long-rumored possibility of separation from Ottawa. Smith's supporters argue that Alberta's right to self-determination should not be controversial. Quebec and Ontario have their own police forces. Alberta, a province with vast resources, population growth, and increasing frustration over federal policies, is simply asserting a right others already enjoy. What's changed is the political tone. Smith isn't asking permission. She's acting. With the RCMP set to reduce its provincial policing role by 2032, Smith's government says it's time to build local capacity. But with no referendum on separation yet called, critics believe her actions are strategic rather than spontaneous, laying groundwork for constitutional confrontation in the years ahead. This has sparked wider debate about unity in Canada. Danielle Smith may not be openly calling for separation, but she's clearly challenging the balance of power between provinces and the federal government. Her moves, timed just months after Carney's federal election win and weeks before a major Conservative by-election, are not accidental. They're calculated. She knows frustration in Alberta has reached a boiling point, from energy regulations to tax burdens to perceived disrespect from Ottawa. This policing decision isn't just about boots on the ground. It's about planting a flag in the ground. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is fighting his own political battle. After losing his seat in the April election, Poilievre is now running in the Alberta riding of Battle River, Crowfoot. This area is a Conservative fortress. Past MPs have won over 80% of the vote, but the stakes are still high. For Poilievre, it's not about winning, it's about how much he wins by. Anything less than the dominant margins of his predecessor, Damien Correc, could feed into a narrative that his star is fading, even in Conservative heartland. And with the leadership review coming in 2026, he knows every percentage point counts. Some local Conservatives are voicing quiet frustration. Poilievre, originally from Alberta, has spent years as an MP in Ottawa. Now parachuted into the province after losing a seat, he's seen by some as an outsider occupying a space meant for someone more local. While most will still vote for him, the energy on the ground may not match past levels. It's not personal, it's political. Poilievre represents the National Conservative brand, but many in Alberta are leaning toward a vision of the province that is less about national integration and more about standing on its own. For him, that's a delicate tightrope to walk. Carney's challenges aren't limited to parliamentary insults or isolated scandals. His economic leadership is under increasing fire. One of his most damaging missteps was a failed attempt to introduce a digital services tax. Announced with confidence, it was withdrawn almost immediately after backlash, without even entering formal negotiations. Critics viewed this as an embarrassing retreat that signaled weakness, not only to Canadians, but to international partners. For a man known for his financial pedigree, the optics of a botched tax proposal did real damage to his credibility. More than anything, it reinforced the perception that Carney is struggling to transition from banker to political leader. These early missteps have painted Carney as hesitant and reactive rather than bold and visionary. His campaign promised competence, modernization, and reform, but so far, what Canadians have seen is indecision and retreat. His opponents have seized the moment. Conservatives accuse him of saying one thing and doing another. They point to rising discontent in the West as proof that Carney's government is out of touch with real Canadians, especially those outside urban liberal strongholds. And they're not entirely wrong. The federal government's relationship with provinces like Alberta hasn't been this strained in decades. All of this plays directly into the hands of Danielle Smith. Her message is clear: if Ottawa won't listen, Alberta will act. The provincial police force is just one piece of a larger puzzle, an effort to build Alberta institutions that are less dependent on federal ones. In her eyes, independence isn't a radical idea, it's a rational response to federal overreach. Whether or not she ultimately calls a referendum on separation, the momentum is building. And with each federal misstep, the sentiment becomes harder to dismiss as fringe. This is not a fleeting controversy or a week-long news cycle. What's happening in Alberta reflects a deeper undercurrent across the country. There's a growing sense among many Canadians that the federal government is too centralized, too slow, and too distant from the needs of ordinary people. That sentiment is being weaponized, not only by conservative opposition but by provincial leaders determined to redraw the map of Canadian governance. Carney may have won the election, but it's unclear whether he's winning the country. In the end, what's at stake isn't just Carney's credibility or Poilievre's by-election win, it's Canada's unity. Alberta's push for autonomy is now law, not just symbolism. As Danielle Smith asserts provincial control and Poilievre returns to Parliament, Carney's leadership will face repeated tests that could shape the future of the Federation itself.